talk today about Shiurei Torah. It's a very vast topic, but unfortunately people have a lot of misconceptions about what the Shiurei Torah is, what a kezait is, what a revi'it is. I've had people come to me, come to me, ask me, I had a piece of cake this big, and ask me, Rabbi, did I have a kezait? Right? When I'm telling them they almost have to wash and bench, and they're having a safek, maybe they had a shul kezait. We always know, there are a lot of the famous mahloket between the Chazon Ish and Chaim Now. That's what we'll be discussing today, and we just want to clarify a little bit where the arguments start from, and try to get a little bit into what the minhag is, what halacha l'maaseh is. We'll start with the Gemara, which basically everything is based on the Gemara in Pesachim, Daf Kuftet Amud Aleph. The Gemara says, Revi'it shel Torah, Omer Rav Chizda, Revi'it shel Torah etzba'im al etzba'im, Borom etzba'im, Hachatzi etzba, v'chomesh etzba. Obviously they didn't have our type of math in those days, so if they wanted to say it's 2 by 2 fingers, what is the shiur revi'it? 2 fingers by 2 fingers. By the way Gemara says it, it's brom etzba'im v'chatzi etzba v'chomesh etzba. A half a finger and a fifth of a finger. For those of us that know a little bit about math, that's basically 2.7. So it's 2 by 2 by 2.7. That is the shiur of revi'it. Now already here, which is going to be a major topic we'll talk about, is we see that the shiurim of Torah are all nefach, what we call nefach, value, not weight. We'll discuss this more later, but they're telling us that the idea of revi'it is 2 fingers by 2 fingers by 2.7 fingers. How does the Gemara get that? Very simple. Because a revi'it is what? A revi'it is what we call a revi'it halog. Log is one of the Shiurei Torah. There are 6 eggs in a log. Revi'it is automatically an egg and a half. But where does the Gemara get this from? Because the Gemara is saying very simple. A revi'it is a revi'it halog. A log is, there are 4 logim in a kav, 6 kavim in a sa. For those of us that know math, automatically, if there are 4 lugim in a kav, 6 kavim in a sa, 24 lugim in a sa. There are 40 sa in a mikveh, right? So basically what we have to do, we know what the shiur of a mikveh is. Shiur of a mikveh is 3 amot, so that was the standard height of a person. 3 amot by 1 amma by 1 amma. So now all we have to do is to figure out the relation, the ratio of a revi'it to a mikveh, because we know exactly what a mikveh is. A mikveh is 3 amot. What is an amma? 6 tfachim, right? 6 tfachim, so it's obviously 18 tfachim by 1 amma by 1 amma. So we just need, everything is related, so all we need to do is figure out what is a revi'it log. A log is 1/24 of a sa, and a sa is 1/40 of a mikveh. So all we have to do is basically figure that out, that ratio, and figure out how big a revi'it is. Very simple. So based on that, the Gemara says, again, everything is based on fingers, because we know that there are again 6 tfachim in an amma, 6 tfachim in an amma. The Gemara talks about sometimes it's 5 tfachim, but basically there's halacha l'maaseh, there are 6 tfachim in an amma, and in each tefach there are 4 etzba'ot. When we talk about etzba'ot, we're talking about the agudal, the thumb. There are 4 agudalim in a tefach, right? So there are 24 agudalim in an amma. So basically, according to that ratio, the Gemara basically says they're very simple to figure out how big a revi'it is. So it says it's 2 etzba'ot by 2 etzba'ot by 2.7 etzba'ot. That's how the Gemara makes the calculation of how big a revi'it is. The Gemara does not talk about eggs. It doesn't need to talk about eggs because everything is related to what the shiur of a mikveh is. Because the shiur of a mikveh is based on the size of a person. So basically, the Gemara says it's 2 by 2 by 2.7. So l'chura, we should not have any questions anymore. We should be able to very simply figure out basically all the shiurei Torah we should be able to figure it out based on this. Because we can work backwards. Since a revi'it is 2 by 2 by 2.7, and a revi'it is an egg and a half, and so all we have to do is figure out, according to that, 2/3 of a revi'it, and I got the size of an egg. I don't have to ask, it's not the Chazon Ish, I don't have to ask the Nodeb Yehuda what the size of an egg is. I don't even have to go to the chicken coop. All I have to do is figure out what 2/3 of a revi'it is, and I know what the size of an egg is. Because I know a revi'it is an egg and a half. There's only one problem. The Tzlach, the Nodeb Yehuda, he went ahead and he did this. He did his fingers, 2 by 2 by 2.7. And he measured it. And then he went ahead and he measured the eggs in his time. He did the test. He did the test. And he says he has a big problem. Because when he measured with eggs, he says, how do you measure the size of an egg, especially in those days? Very simple. Egg, all measurement is obviously volume. How do you measure a volume of an egg, which is obviously not a very square object? So how do you measure the volume? Displacement. You put water up until whatever you want. In any dish, doesn't make a difference what size it is. You put the egg in, you see the amount of water that comes out, and now you know the displacement. According to the displacement, you know exactly how much the size of your egg is. Very simple process. He did that, and he tells us, major problem. He says when he measured with fingers, he came to one amount. When he came to eggs, it was half. In other words, he did the measurement of 2 by 2.7, for argument's sake. Let's say he got to 150, which is the shiur of the Chazon Ish. 100, everything is going to be, you guys will excuse me, I'm from Israel, everything is going to be in metric system. Right? 150, how happens to be, the metric system, also what we're talking about, is going to be much simpler to use. Because the weight of 100 milliliters of water, milliliters is volume. And the weight of 100 milliliters of water is also 100 grams. It makes it a lot easier than using ounces and everything else, which they don't work together. Here, they work very well together. So basically, let's say, for argument's sake, he came out that when he did the displacement of eggs, he came to 75 milliliters. When he did it with fingers, he figured he did 2 by 2 by 2.7, and that came out to 150 milliliters. Now, the Tzlach had no answer to the problem. The Tzlach in Pesachim, over here on the Daf, on Daf Kuftet, he had a problem. So what does he say? We have to be mahmir.
It depends on the size of the egg and depends on the size of the finger. There's a small
Very
egg,
good.
Big egg.
Okay. Or hold on. So now he went ahead. Obviously, we don't have a picture of the Nodeb Yehuda. I don't know how big he was, and I don't know exactly how many people he surveyed. But this is what he tells us that he did, and he had this problem, and he automatically said, "No, what should we do? It's a problem. What is the right shiur?" So he went ahead and he said, what we have to do, we have to be mahmir. When it comes to deoraita, we have to be mahmir, the bigger shiur. And theoretically, the smaller shiur could also be, that's not, I didn't say that right, take that back. Whenever it comes to a question of deoraita, we have to take the more stringent shiur. Sometimes the smaller shiur is more hamu. For example, when you're talking about Yom Kippur, which we'll discuss hopefully later, the smaller shiur is the chumrah. When you want to tell a person how much he can eat, always the smaller shiur is the chumrah. When you want to tell a person how much to eat or how much to drink in order to make a bracha achrona, then the bigger shiur is the chumrah. But that's basically what he says. Therefore, he says we have to be mahmir. That's based on the Gemara. Now, if we already brought it up, it's not so simple. The Chazon Ish, when he came and he measured fingers, he says he measured the standard finger, and he says he got to 2.4 centimeters. I mean, we measure over here, the width of the finger, this way, not this way. There was one guy who wrote a whole thing to answer this whole problem that we had, and he tried to say that it's this. This is the width of a finger, and the Stapler wrote about, wrote pretty bad things about the guy. But it's definitely this, because the fingers are also, the Gemara talks about this finger, and this finger, how many it is if you're using this finger, but so it's obviously the width of the finger, right? Not the depth. So he says he measured and it was 2.4. But Moshe Feinstein came out and he said when he measured the standard was 2.1 or 2.2. Came out a little bit different. But again, according to the other shiur, if we're going to work with the smaller egg, we're going to say that an egg is, in other words, when they're, again, 75 milliliters is the smaller shiur, which is half. Basically, he said it was double. 75 milliliters is an egg and a half. So an egg would be 50. If you're going with the bigger shiur, an egg is 100. Now, we do not have any eggs, as far as we know, in today's, unless you're talking about an ostrich egg, right? When we're talking about a chicken's egg, there are no eggs that size. You go into, I can tell you in Israel for sure, there's what they call small, medium, large eggs. Right? What they call medium eggs is usually, in Israel they call it between 53 and 63 milliliters. Large is something like between 60 and 70. But nothing, there are no such eggs that are 100 milliliters. It doesn't exist. That's one major problem, right, with this shiur that they have. Now, where does the whole problem come from? Because the question is, well, we have to decide. Maybe there was a change. No, again, the finger, if we're going to work with the finger in order that it should work with the 50 milliliters, if an egg is 50 milliliters, that means you have to work backwards now. In order to make it work, and again, he went ahead, the tzach went ahead, and he worked with our fingers, 2 by 2 by 2.7, what the Gemara says. And he came out with 150 milliliters. In order to come out with 75 milliliters, that means that the finger has to be 2 centimeters wide. Maybe even 1.9. Right? And we don't have, none of us, right? None of us have a finger that narrow. Right? Nobody. Maybe you're talking about a 10-year-old, but that's about it. Nobody has fingers 2 centimeters wide. So here we're really stuck. Our eggs don't fit our fingers. So we have to make a decision. What happened? Did we become bigger or did the eggs become smaller? So the first idea that we became bigger, a lot of Achronim did not like the idea. Well, we know Moshe Rabbeinu. Midrashim say Moshe Rabbeinu was 10 amot tall. Right? 10 amot tall. And the feeling of some Achronim, the Chazon Ish and others, was that, well, the people were much greater in those days, much stronger and everything else, so they were probably bigger. That's what some Achronim take on. So if they were bigger, so it's at least 2.4. Because if we have today 2.4 centimeters fingers, so then it was at least 2.4. So it can't be smaller. That's where they're coming from.
Don't we know that the average height of a person in the times of Shas was 3 amos?
But how big is an amma? That's the biggest problem. How big is an amma? It's all based on the same problem. In other words, an amma is what? 24 agudalim. And if agudal is 2, then that's what everybody knows. An amma of the Abrakaimna is what? 48 centimeters. How do you get 48 centimeters? Because an amma is 24 fingers. Because in every tefach there are 6. In every amma there are 6 tefachim. In every tefach there are 4 agudalim. So it's 24 agudalim. If each agudal is 2 centimeters, then it's 48 centimeters. If it's 2.4, then you're getting to 57.6, which is the shiur of the Chazon Ish. Right? the standard, when you're talking about, for example, tzitzit, it's also nogea, how big does tzitzit need to be? If tzitzit is, again, if it has to be an amma wide, and according to, as we just saw that hanging outside from Rabbi Mansour, that Rav Ovadia, even though he at one point held it's 1.5 amot, today he was, not today, at his Mishnah Achrona was that you need 2 amot, so it needs to be 48 amot, 48 centimeters wide by 96 centimeters long. But that's only if you're going with an amma of 2, starting with 2 centimeters. If you start with 2.4, and it's obviously it's 4 times obviously 24, it's obviously 9, 24 times 4 is 9.6, so therefore it's 9.6 centimeters more, therefore it's 50, therefore it comes out to, instead of 48, 57.6 centimeters. That's how the Chazon Ish, the Shur of the Chazon Ish, when you ever go into a store, I assume it's probably the same thing here, or Bezrat Hashem, you will go to visit Israel. If you want the Shur of Chazon Ish, you ask for a number 5 tzitzit, and if you want the Shur of Chazon Ish, you ask for number 6. That's the difference. 5 is Reb Chaim Na, and Chazon Ish is number 6. So the question is, did they get small? Did we get smaller, or did we get bigger? Now, so there's one feeling that to say that, well, people, we see these unbelievable things that Chazal are telling us at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, 10 amot tall, all these type of things. There was a feeling to go that we didn't get bigger. If anything, we got smaller. The biggest problem with this is, if you've ever been to excavations in Israel, the first thing you notice is that all the doorposts are very low. Go to any excavation, right? It usually bores us, but sometimes that's where we end up taking the kids or the wife, and we have to do something. At least you should learn something when you go on excavations. You'll see all of the doorposts are very low. Very low. Besides that, we have the coffins from the time, we have coffins from 2,000 years ago, right? And the coffins are much smaller than the coffins of today.
Wow.
Sorry?
Wow.
Yeah? The coffins are much smaller. That's one, so it's very possible that they were really, the standard person was smaller in the times of Hazal. Now, besides that, eggs. Okay, well maybe the eggs became smaller, right? But there's only one problem with that. The Rambam in Masechet Eduyot, first page, Masechet Eduyot, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Bet. Now the Rambam over here basically tells me the shi'ur. He tells me like this. Okay, he says, B'chol HaTorah, techil min hayayin, again, va'ani asiti midah betachlit. The Rambam was a very practical person. He says, I did it betachlit ma sheyacholti, min hadiktuk. Again, he says, tachlit min hadiktuk. That means he went ahead and he tried to be exact as he could. Umatzati, harvi'it hanizkeret b'kol HaTorah, techil min hayayin, karov, chavav kisafim, hanikraim dirham. Umin hamayim karov lechav zayin dirham. The Rambam tells us that, he solves us the problem. He tells us exactly how much the Aravi'it is. Now, he can't tell us in volume, because he didn't have volume shiurim like we have. Today we have milliliters and all these type of things, and ounces, whatever, but he couldn't tell us in that way. So what did he have to tell you? Yeah, he told us if, again, he did displacement of water, and he tells us if you want to know how much a Revi'it is going to hold, he tells us that a Revi'it is going to hold 27 dirhamim of water. That means the weight of the water, again, those days everything was weight. So he's telling me, in weight, the weight of the water of a Revi'it is 27 dirhamim. Again, he weighed, he knew obviously somehow he decided what the size of a revi'it is. We don't know how he did it. Hopefully he used fingers. But he tells us that the volume, the weight of that shi'ur of a revi'it is the weight of 27 dirhamim. You weigh the water of a revi'it, it's going to weigh 27 dirhamim. He says wine. Wine is a little bit lighter than water. He tells us it's 26 dirhamim. But he tells us this is 27 dirhamim. And he goes on. Umatzati shur halab ba'ota midah 520 dirham. Bikarov mikemah hitim. Now he tells you, what is the shur halab? Now, shur halab is, in order to be hayav in halab, you have to have va'omer asir taifahu. You need to have a disha of an omer. 43, what is it? Omer asir taifa. Without going through all kashbon, we don't have time. But it's basically 43.2 eggs. That is the shiur of halab. And he tells us that shiur automatically, right? Again, if a revi'it is 27 dirhamim, so an egg is 2/3 of that, 18, right? Right? Simple math, right? 18. An egg is 18 dirham. The weight of an egg is the weight of the volume of an egg. I'm not talking about the egg itself. Don't get me wrong. We're talking about the weight of the volume of an egg, of a beitzah, of a halachic beitzah. The halachic beitzah weighs 18, so you times that by 43.2 and you get 520 dirhamim. So it should be very simple, right, for us to figure out today, halacha l'maaseh, how much a revi'it is. It's very simple, 18 dirhamim. Who did this? The Reb Chaim Nau went ahead and he weighed the dirhamim. Now the dirhamim was a coin that was used in the Sephardic lands up until 70 years ago. Dirhamim, famous coin. So Reb Chaim Nau went ahead and he weighed the standard dirham of his time. How much did it weigh? 3.2 grams. Very simple. So now he knows the shiur. 18 times 3.2 is 86.4. Right? So he knows the shiur of revi'it. And that's how Reb Chaim Nau got to all of his shiurim. Based on the Rambam. The Rambam tells us the shiur. He took the dirham. We have dirhamim. What's the big deal? Take dirhamim. We'll figure them out.
Yeah.
Right? Just weigh the dirham. It was a Sephardi, it was a coin that was in Egypt throughout the generations. Obviously, the Rambam was in Egypt. It was a shiur of the dirhamim. And it wasn't no big deal. Now, based on that, we'll get to later the shiur of a kazait, because the kazait is either a half of an egg, a third of an egg, but that's where the starting point is. What does the other camp answer to this? Because obviously, if a dirham is 3.2, so we know the shiur of revi'it, and automatically we know the shiur of an egg. Because since, again, if it's 18 dirham times 3.2, you get to 86.4. If you're going with that, so that's the shiur of an egg. So you know that the shiur of revi'it is 86.4 and the egg is 57.6. Very simple. That's the famous shiur of the Chaim Nau. What is the size of an egg? 57.6. It's very easy to remember because also 57.6 is the shiur of Chazon Ish's Amma. Very weird coincidence, but that's what it is. 57.6 is the shiur of Reb Chaim Nau. That's the shiur of an egg. What does the other camp do with that? Says the Chazon Ish something very interesting or frightening. He says, Reb Chaim Nau, what are you talking about? How do you know that the dirham that you had, what he had 75 years ago, how do you know that that's the dirham of the Rambam? Who told you? Maybe the dirhamim of the Rambam were different. Maybe the dirhamim basically became half the size. So how do you know? How do you know what the dirhamim were 1,000 years ago? The Rambam. What?
To go get the dirham from.
Okay,
10,000.
very good. So the Chazon Ish didn't have that in his time, right? Today we have thousands of coins from the time of the Rambam. Thousands, not one or two or three. Thousands of coins from the time of the Rambam. Who wants to guess who was right? What? What? No. Okay. No. Rav Chaim, no. But there was only one problem. The Chazon Ish was right in a certain way. The Chazon Ish says, how do you know? Maybe the size of the coins in those days were double. He was right. It did change. There was just one problem. They were smaller then, not bigger.
Ooh. Wow.
The standard coins were, the average was 2.82 grams, not 3.2. And the biggest ones were 3 grams, not 3.2.
Maybe they were used up. That's why they're smaller. That's what Gemara talks about. That they become smaller.
No. Gold does not get smaller.
Oh, because they keep using it and they keep rubbing it and it gets smaller.
No. It doesn't get smaller. The coins don't get smaller. Gold doesn't get smaller. Right? I mean, especially when you have thousands of them and they're all the same amount. Now, the biggest problem with the Chazon Ish was the fact that the Rambam told us the shiur in dirhamim. He tells us 520 is the shiur of challah. He tells us 27 is a revi'it, 18 is an egg. The Rambam passed away in the year 1204. Maran in Shulchan Aruch, who he wrote the Shulchan Aruch, was printed in the year 1570. Almost 400 years later. Maran in Shulchan Aruch quotes the same amount. He says the shiurim also in dirhamim. Maran in Shulchan Aruch writes the shiur in dirhamim. To top it off, the Sfaradim, throughout the generations, all of the Gdolei Sfarad, always quoted the shiur of dirhamim. 27, 18, 520. So in order to say that there was a change in dirhamim, I hate to say this, but the Chazon Ish is making that all the Sfaradi Rabbanim were a bunch of idiots. In order for that to have happened, all of the Sfaradi Rabbanim would have been a bunch of idiots. They're quoting a Rambam. Imagine if I would tell you, talk about dollars. Oh, I talk about shkalim, right? Right? We all know that there were lirot. Until Tavshin Memalef we had lirot. Then we had shkalim. And then they changed it to shekel hadash. So imagine if I would be telling you a price or, a coin. I'd be talking about, you guys, I don't know if you guys know what happened. First they changed lirot into shekel. 10 lirot became a shekel. And then 1,000 shekel became 1 shekel. That's the shekel hadash. In other words, the 10,000 lirot in 1 new shekel. In other words, basically, if if you wanted to buy a loaf of bread today with lirot, you'd probably have to pay 5 million shekel, 5 million lirot. Right? So imagine if I would tell you a price, right? I'd be talking about lirot or shekel, and I tell you the other one by mistake. I tell you the price of a loaf of bread is 5 million shekel. I made a mistake. I was talking about lirot. Should be ridiculous, right? Obviously, if throughout the generations, the Sfaradi Rabbanim were quoting a coin and telling everybody, use this coin in order to make your shiurim, they obviously would have to realize that, one second, you're quoting something from the Rambam. Well, maybe it changed, right? So, and the Sfaradim were living in the countries of the Rambam and all the Sfaradic lands. They never went ahead and never told anybody, right? Hey, one second, one of two things would have happened. They're using the Rambams, talking about the Rambam thing, and they expect everybody to somehow be able to translate it into their times when it didn't. Or they were just a bunch of idiots and they forgot that the Ramim of the time of the Rambam changed. It did become a little bigger. A little bit bigger is not the end of the world. Because they're just telling people, you have to be a little bit more machmir. That was the standard. It wasn't such a big difference. We're only talking about, on a standard egg, you're talking about either 50 or 57 milliliters, not such a big difference. But it's not double. right? Imagine, according to Chazon Ish, we would have to be saying that everything really became, the diramim became half of the size of what was in the time of the Rambam, and all of these Sfaradi Rabbanim, starting from the Shulchan Aruch, unless you're going to tell me somehow it happened between the Shulchan Aruch and the next generations. That's basically what the Chazon Ish wants to say, right? You know, it's almost a zilzul in the Sfaradi Rabbanim to say such a thing happened, right? You can argue and say maybe the Shiur of the Rambam is a different Shiur, or you want to argue on the Rambam or anything, but to say that all of the Sfaradi Rabbanim throughout the generations went ahead and quoted the same Shiur and didn't tell us that the Shiur changed, or they weren't smart enough to realize that the Shiur changed, is almost a zilzul in the kavod of the Sfaradi Rabbanim. We can't accept such a thing. That's one problem with the bigger Shiur of the Chazon Ish. But we have another problem. Forgetting about the dirhamim, the Rambam also tells us in Hilchot Eruvin, the Rambam tells us, Litra hamura b'chol makom, this is Perek Aleph, Hilchot Eruvin, Perek Aleph, halacha Yudbet. Litra hamura b'chol makom, מלא שתי רביעיות, והוחלט חצי רביעית, ומנה אמור בכל מקום 100 דינר, והדינר, that's what's important to us. הדינר 6 מעים. Anybody know the Gemara knows there's 6 מעות in a dinar. והמעה משקל 16 שעורות. The Rambam tells us, now, we don't have the coins of the time of Hazal, so Rambam again, being Mr. Practical, he tells us in another way. Here he doesn't tell us in dirhamim. He tells us, והמעה משקל 16 שעורות. He tells us that a ma'a weighs 16 seorot. So now we have another way of figuring out how much everything is. Just go weigh, let's go weigh the seorah is a grain, right? It's a barley. Let's go weigh the barley. Right?
No.
What?
No.
Why not?
Because then the barley's you're gonna have problems with the sizes too.
Oh, maybe the barley changed too, right? The barley changed. So the eggs changed, the barley changed, right? Right? And we have the same problem, right? So we have the shiur in dirhamim. The dirhamim changed. Remember, the dirhamim changed, the eggs changed, the seorot changed, right? Now, in order for this to work, I don't know, you guys will figure it out what the chances are. Everything not only had to change, everything changed exactly double. Everything, the eggs changed double, the seorot changed double, and the dirhamim all changed double. What are the chances of that happening? Right? Probably 1 in a million. Right? That everything changes double. All of what we have, the seorot, the dirhamim, everything shows the smaller shiur. In order for the bigger shiur to be right, it would have to be that everything changed. Somehow, I don't know what it is. Right? The seorot, all these things changed. Everything changed exactly the same way. Everything changed double. Right? They were all on a conspiracy. Right? They all decided to do this to us and change exactly double together. That's the eggs. The eggs, dirhamim, seorot. Dirhamim. Not only that, here it gets even stickier. Now you would imagine that if the seorot changed, that means they were bigger. Right? Not only they weighed more, right? You know, it makes sense that if they weighed more, they were bigger, right? That makes sense. Now we also use the shiur of seorot. We also use the shiur of seorot for pidyon haben. It's also brought down to the shiur of seorot for pidyon haben, and for the size where it's mostly used for the size of, for example, the ritzoot. How big do the ritzoot have to be? And the Rambam tells the shiur also. So we know the width, right? The width of the seorot. Not only do we know the weight, now we even know the width of the seorot. So in order for the Chazon Ish to have been right it would have to be even crazier, that the sarot were the same size, but way double. Now that's even a bigger crazy phenomenon that have to be right. So we have here basically a lot of proofs that the smaller shiur was, at least according to the Rambam, right? The Rambam that tells us the shiur in dirhamim, it tells us shiur in sarot, it seems that the smaller shiur was the correct shiur. Now, what does that mean for us, halacha l'maaseh? The Chazon Ish himself writes in one place that if we would have a hora'ah, if we would have some psak from the Rishonim, we would definitely do like that. And here, the Qur'an, it seems he just was saying that the hora'ah of the Rambam was basically off because he held that the diramim were different. But if we would have a hora'ah from the Rishonim, we would definitely use what the hora'ah is. So we have a hora'ah from the Rambam. We have what the minhag of the Sfaradim throughout the generations was. Right? That was the minhag, to use the smaller shi'ur. Even the Ashkenazim, right? Rav Elyashiv, Rav Shlomo Zalman, Rav Chaim Noah, they all said that the minhag in most places was also like the smaller shi'ur. The Mishnah Berurah, right, also talks about this in a few different places. The Mishnah Berurah really, he writes, well, what should we do? We don't know. It's a safek. When it comes to Deoraita, we'll be Mahmir, comes to Rabbanan, we'll be Mekel. But the Mishnah Berurah himself says that he also did a check. Right? He also did a check. And we know that there's a shiur called Melo Lugmav. Right? Melo Lugmav is the amount that you put into your mouth. Right? You can put into your mouth, you spit out. That's the shiur which is most known for on Yom Kippur. You're not allowed to drink more than a Melo Lugmav. Even somebody who is drinking, we tell him to drink less than a Melo Lugmav. So, a Melo Lugmav is rov revi'it. It's a majority of a revi'it. You guys can all go ahead. This is a very simple test. Try to put water into your mouth and spit it out and see how much you get. In order for it to work according to the Chazon Ish, right? That means it would have to be, since according to Chazon Ish, a revi'it is 150 milliliters. In order for it to work, that means it would have to be 75 milliliters. I challenge anybody to get 75 milliliters into his mouth at once.
It's too much?
Wait, you can't do it.
One sec.
Just try to get in as much as you can and come back to me and tell me how much you get. Right? The Mishnah Berurah already was stuck. He says it doesn't work. Right? He said it doesn't work with the shiur of the Chazon Ish. Right? He himself says, it's okay, we have to be mahmir, we don't know exactly how to measure, we don't know measure, but it also doesn't work. So the Mishnah Berurah, even though he was stuck, and he says it doesn't really work, the shiur of the Chazon Ish, but at the end he said when it comes to a question of the Oraita, we should be mahmir. Comes to the question of the Rabbanan, we could be mekel.
Maybe people had bigger cheeks than the time of Chazal.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it was all the same thing. There were bigger cheeks, bigger everything, right?
According to the Chazal Ish anyways.
Okay. It doesn't mean that if you're taller that your cheek holds, almost double the amount. One doesn't have to go with the other. Right?
How big is this? How many ounces?
Probably you guys is 8 ounces. It's 200 milliliters.
So 75 ml is 2.35 ounces. It's not so much.
Okay, try it.
Okay.
Try it.
This big, this much.
Less than that. But try to see how much you can get into your mouth at once and how much you try it. Okay? So basically, again, the minhag of all the Sfaradim was the smaller shiur. Now, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, for those who are Ovadia Yosefnikim, he really, these shiurim was put out by a Chavruta of mine, His name is Rabbi Adar Magovin. He wrote a few works on this. And I don't know exactly where Rav Ovadia was coming from, but Rav Ovadia read what he wrote, and what he wrote was there was 2.82. The standard average dinar was 2.82. The biggest one was 3. For some reason, which I don't know why, but Rav Ovadia went ahead for all the years, probably 30, 40 years, he was always quoting the shiur of the Rav Chaim Na, 86 milliliters. After my Havruta wrote this work, so he changed to make the dirham free, and that's how, if you look at the new shiurim of Rav Ovadia, they went down from 86 to 81. Right? Why? Because he took the bigger dirham of 3. Okay, there's no reason to do that. The smaller one, it comes out that it's 75 milliliters. If you go work with 2.823, it comes out to 75 milliliters. So Rav Ovadia, he changed the shiurim, but he changed it not all the way to what we're saying, he changed it down to 81. Now, that's an egg. That's the shiur of an egg. The egg and Revi'it go together. Now, theoretically, when we're talking about an egg, that's totally different than a kazait. A kazait is a machloket rishonim. How big is a kazait? So, Tosfot say it's a problem. The Gemara says in one place that the Beit HaBri'ah can hold an egg. In one place it says it can hold 2 kezitim. So therefore, the shita of Tosfot is that a kezait is a half an egg. The majority of the Rishonim, which means the Rambam, Rif, Rosh, Tur, all the other Rishonim hold no. That the size of an egg is a third or less than the size of a kezait, is a third or less of an egg. Third or less of an egg. So if an egg is 50 milliliters, that means a kezait, according to this, is no more than 17. If anybody ever read Rabbi Bodner's book, I don't know if they have it here, you know, the kezait picture book? Okay. You'll read, it's almost hysterical. You read the Haskama of Rav Chaim Kanievsky, right? He has, you know, a back and forth between him and Rav Chaim Kanievsky on this topic. How big is a kazait? How much you should make a borei nefashot, which is a question of saying Shem Shemaim Levatala, right? So he basically says 17 milliliters. That's what Reb Chaim Kanievsky says. Now we're talking about, obviously everybody knows Reb Chaim Kanievsky is the nephew of the Chazon Ish, and everything does like the Chazon Ish. So even though the Chazon Ish had bigger shiurim when it came to an egg and it came to Revi'it, but that's totally different when it comes to kezait. Why? Because the Chazon Ish really got stuck himself. I'm trying to make a long story short, but the Chazon Ish got stuck. Because according to the Chazon Ish, if the dirhamim weighed more, if the shiur of a dinar is more, again, we also, I didn't have time, the Rambam also tells us the shiur of dinarim. He tells us how much it weighs in dinarim. So in order for everything to work, right? Now we know the shiur of pidyon haben is the standard minhag of shiur of pidyon haben was basically between 90 and 100 grams, right? That was the minhag. That was the minhag throughout the generations. In order for the Chazon Ish to be right, the shiur of pidyon haben would have to be double. He came out, at one point the Chazon Ish was telling people to be mahmir and be poder with 170 or more grams of silver. Right? At one point. Right? But that was against the minhag. Nobody was doing pidyon haben that big. So the Chazon Ish came along, and don't forget that the shiur of pidyon haben was said again in Sorot. So the Chazon Ish went ahead and said that a tremendous chidush to answer this problem. that the shi'ur, a pidyon haben, was given over in Seorot. And it doesn't make a difference what it was 2,000 years ago. It was given over in Seorot, whatever Seorot are today, and therefore, since today Seorot way less, the shi'ur of pidyon haben is less. And based on that, the Chazon Ish also said, and the Steipler also quotes the Chazon Ish, that the shi'ur of a kazayit is kazayit shel zmanenu. The shi'ur of a kazayit is not a half of an egg, like Tosfot, because I don't care what an egg was according to this at that time. I don't care what an olive was at that time. I care what an olive is today, right? So if you're going according to an olive of today, obviously it's much smaller. It's known that the Reb Chaim Volozhin was asked, how big is a kazayit? It's known that he took out a spoon and he said, a third of this.
Wow.
That's the shi'ur of kazayit. The Sachat Shover was the same. The Sachat Shover, the Avnei Nezer, he says, it was pointed to the back of his finger, he said a little bit bigger than this. That's the shi'ur of a kazayit. So even according to the Chazon Ish, this is what most people do not know. Even though the Chazon Ish shi'urim are tremendous, are much bigger, the Chazon Ish himself held, me'ikar adin, the shi'ur of a kazayit is kazayit shel zmanenu, which is maximum somewhere between 5 and 8 milliliters. That's kazayit shel zmanenu. That's why Reb Chaim Kanievsky, when he was telling him back and forth, he tried 4 times. Read it. It's almost hysterical. He went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky and asked him how much. Reb Chaim Kanievsky tells him 17 milliliters. You can already make a burden for sure. But he tells him, maybe we should be mahmir. He says, no, 17. So he tried 3 times to get Reb Chaim Kanievsky to be mahmir. And everybody knows Reb Chaim Kanievsky is not the type of guy to be mekel stam. Right? He tried 3 times, read the haskama. And Reb Chaim Kanievsky stood strong. 17 milliliters is already enough to make a borei nefashot.
He's machmir for Rambam.
What?
Is he machmir for Rambam?
Well, he was going, in other words, he was going more than kazayit shel zmanenu, and you're going to say that it's a third of an egg. You don't need.
Chura like that, the Rishonim.
No. The Chazon Ish himself writes that when you're talking about a kazayit, you can go with the shi'ur of a third of an egg. He himself writes. But he's talking about an egg of 100. So even the most stringent way of coming out with the shi'ur would be 33 milliliters. Because less than a third of an egg. And by the way, this is another problem with the shi'ur of the Chazon Ish, because the a kazayit, the Gemara in Erugin also says that a kazayit is smaller than a grogeret. This is what the Rambam is saying. This is where the Rambam got a shi'ur from. Because a grogeret, right? The Gemara says over there that a grogeret is a third of an egg, and a kazayit is less than that. A kazayit is less than a grogeret. So again, in order for the Chazon Ish to be right, that means also the grogrot, which are dried figs, they also had to become smaller. Everything changed. Everything had to change. Everything had to change to be a half of what it was. So in order for the Chazon Ish to work, the shi'ur to work, that means the eggs, the diramim, everything had to change to be half of what it was, which is almost impossible. So again, when we're talking about kibetza, we have two possible shiurim. Either it's 100, which was the shiur of the Chazon Ish, or it's 50, which is the smaller shiur. A kazayit is, again, according to Tosfot, it's a half an egg. Maran and Siman Taf Nun Vav brings down a machloket. He brings yesh omrim and yesh omrim. Whether an egg is, a kazayit is half an egg or a third of an egg. Which is a little bit interesting that Maran did not paskin straight forward like the majority of the Rishonim. Usually the Maran always goes Rambam Bifrosh, right? He wrote down the Shita of Tosfot that it could be as a half an egg, right? But here he brought down both shiurim. He brought either half an egg or a third of an egg. So if you're going with a half of an egg, if you're doing a half of an egg, if a kazayit is a half of an egg of 50, it would be 25. However, here's another problem. When we're talking about an egg, are we talking about an egg with the shell or without the shell? Now, the shiur of an egg is really based on Hilchot Tum'ah and Tahara. How much is an egg mitameh? We're talking about an egg being, what is that shiur talking about? How much is mitameh unkabel tumat ochalim? The Gemara says that tumat ochalim is mitameh, an egg without a shell. How much do you take off for the shell? If it's half of an egg without the Mishnah Berurah and Rav Moshe Feinstein for some reason go that it's half of an egg with the shell, but the majority of Rishonim hold that it's a half of an egg without the shell. Now the minimum you take off for a shell is 1/15 of the egg. Because don't forget, we're talking about, when you're talking about an egg, you're talking about an egg, cooked egg, not a raw egg. Right? That is the shiur for Tum'ah and Ta'ara. If you ever cook an egg, you know there's a big space in the egg itself when you cook it. The cooked egg is much smaller than what it can theoretically hold. But, without going into the Gra really held that there's no machloket. He said the half of an egg and the third egg is really not machloket. One is talking about with the shell, one is talking about the outer shell. Which according to the Gra, that means that the shell is already a third of an egg. He's taking off a third for the shell. But the minimum that you're going to take off is a 15th or a 10th. So if you're already taking off a 10th or something like that, so you're taking off from 50, you're taking off a 10th, which is 45. 45, so the maximum shiur of an egg, even according to the more stringent opinion, we're going to say it's half of an egg without the shell, is 22.5 milliliters, according to that. If you're going with a third of an egg with the shell or without the shell, it's 17 or even less. So the maximum, if we want to be mahmir, we don't have to do every chumah that ever existed, but if you ever want to make a borei nefashot, you can feel very safe if you're making a borei nefashot on 22.5 milliliters. If you want to get an idea what 22.5 milliliters is, basically, those of us that have maternal, you have maternal in this country, right? What do they have, the baby food? What is it called? I don't know.
Israeli maternal, it has to be Israeli maternal?
No, I'm just saying, you look at that scoop, right? I don't have I usually when I give the shiur, I bring in show and tell, right? But the standard scoop is 20 milliliters. That's the shiur. Or you want to get the standard bottle cap is 10 milliliters. 2 of those and you already have a kazait. Right? Now, if anybody wants to be mahmir, and anybody wants to eat a lot, I'm not going to tell them anything. Right? You want to eat you want to tell your wife or your mother, I need more food, I need a bigger kazait. If you want to do that, you can do it. But the problem is the other way. Let's say you didn't eat. Not to make a borei nefashot is l'chura wrong. Right? If you want to be mahmir and eat more, gesund heit, as they say in Yiddish. But once you ate 22, right? Even Reb Chaim Kanievsky with Ashkenazi and his Chazon Ish, he already said 17. And you should know, Reb Shmuel Zalman Auerbach and Reb Yashiv held Meikar Adin, if you ate Kazait Shel Zmanen, you could already make a borei nefashot. Meikar Adin. But if you already had a third of an egg, 17, definitely if you had 22.5, you can definitely make a borei nefashot. Or if you had 75 milliliters of a drink, you could definitely make you should be making borei nefashot. Why do we mahmir? I'm not going to tell anybody not to. Why? Even though we have so many proofs. What the shiur of an egg is, and everything works. But we do have this problem. Because, again, just like it could be that a kezait is kezait shel zmanenu, that's what way Rav Moshe Feinstein also worked, was it could be that the shiurim were given in fingers. Again, kezait is a shiur of a kezait, an olive. That's the way the shiur was given. But the shiur of an egg, it could be that it's relative to the size of a person. Because again, since here we know that it's Gimel Amot, the shiur of a mikveh is Gimel Amot, right? Gimel Amot by 1 amma. So it could be that the shiur of an amma and the shiur of a revi'it, which is based on the shiur of a mikveh, because everything is going to be in relative to what 40 size, and it's going to be, and if our amot are bigger, then our revi'it could theoretically be bigger. And since the shiur was given in 2 by 2 by 2.7, so there is here room to say that even though maybe the revi'it of yesteryear was smaller, There is a tzad to say today, since the shiur is given in fingers, and our fingers are bigger, it depends whatever you want to do. You want to say Moshe Feinstein's 2.1, 2.2, or Chazon Ish is 2.4. So it could be that the shiur of Revi'it really is bigger. It could be. So I'm not saying like there's no place to be machmir for the shiur of the Chazon Ish, because the shiur was given in fingers. But our minhag throughout the generations was not like that. So since our minhag was not like that, definitely, if we do have 75 milliliters, we definitely should be making a borena fashot. Okay,
22.5 ml is 22.5 grams, same thing?
Of water. That's when you're talking only water is the same weight and volume. But that's, I don't have time to talk about it now. When you're talking about anything else, for example, when you talk about matzah, right?
Yeah.
Everybody goes crazy, and unfortunately, it happened again this year. A guy in El-Ad in Israel went ahead and did one of these tremendous shurim of matzah, and he choked and he died.
Wow.
And it's not the first time that it happened, because these people go ahead and they think a shur of a kazayit is, if theoretically people that don't know what they're talking about, they go ahead. Well, a kazayit is half of an egg, and the egg of the Chazon Ish is 100 milliliters. So they're out to get 45 or 50 milliliters of matzah. Now, to top it off, they don't go with milliliters, they go with weight. So they try to get 50 milliliters. Not 50 grams they try, these people, try to get 50 grams of matzah down. And now if you're a real brisker, right?
Double is nice.
Right? Forget about double. You want to swallow it all at once. Because the halacha is lechatchila, you're supposed to be swallowing the kezayit at once, lechatchila. Right? So forget about being double. Try to swallow 50 grams of matzah at once. Just you should get an idea, a standard matzah is between 60 and 80 grams. You want to try to swallow 2/3 of a matzah at once. And it's not the first time that this has happened, that people are pashut choked to death trying to do this. Because again, the weight of matzah really is just the opposite. It's a half the weight of water. So you don't need, when we're saying, if we want to be machmir and say, for example, that you need 22.5 grams of water, 25 milliliters, when you're talking about matzah, you only need 13 grams of matzah. 15 grams, I tell people to take 15 grams of matzah because 2 grams stay between your teeth. But not 50 grams and not swallowing it all at once. It's impossible to do. Okay? I mean, we'll have to stop here for, I don't know, we should do Musar or not? It's already over time. What?
We should stop.
Okay.
Thank you. Shukran. Very, very, very.